Hey everyone, and welcome to another Untold Stories podcast. Today, I have with me Casey Stuart, the voice of the Keys for over 30 years.
Hey, well, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
This is awesome. Well, you've got quite a history in the Keys, being the DJ on the radio and
Long time.
And all of the stuff you did with the community and the events that we've had over the years. I mean, the list of people you've met and stories are probably just endless.
Yeah, on the way here, I was trying to think of how long you and I have known each other. It's been probably close to 30 years or so.
Yeah, probably started with a story.
Yeah. We did radio shows together for a long time when you used to call in backcountry fishing reports on my morning show.
That's true.
That went on for years and years. And most recently, you and I collaborated on this magnificent facility here known as Islamorada Fishing Outfitters.
That's
when I
true.
had a little free time on my hands during COVID, you and I hooked up and you said, "Can you swing a hammer?" And I said, I'll be right over.
We had time and we had Home Depot and Lowe's that had cedar.
And you had a vision.
Oh, I hate when that happens. But, I mean,
Well, sometimes you have visions, sometimes you have hallucinations.
every day
This was a vision, and a lot of people I recall said you were out of your mind, but look how it turned out. It's beautiful.
Well, I remember at the end of each day when we were doing this, I would look at you and go, look at it.
Look at it.
Just look at it.
Look at it.
And it was pretty cool.
And it's a great shop. It's given you a great opportunity to showcase what you do so well. And,
Absolutely.
And customers have been turned on by it, and you really got something going here.
Well, it's something that I can spend my time and I can parlay 40 years of being here into something and share with people. And that's not something you're going to go to just any shop and get a person behind the counter that can actually answer your question.
Yeah, there's more here when you walk through the door. It's not just the products that you have on display. It's the service. It's the knowledge. It's the experience. So it's all
Like the
here.
guy earlier, before we started talking, he gave me his credit card. We'll talk as long as you like.
The meter's running. But again, congratulations on this.
Oh, thank you.
It's a cool thing.
Well, it came out great, and I was lucky to have you around at the time with some skills
Yeah.
and the just the wanting to do it.
Yeah, it was
You
fun.
know.
We had a good time.
Yeah, we did.
A lot of laughs.
Little blood.
You
But-
know,
What happened with the drill? That's what I was going to say.
a few mistakes along the way. Yeah, Randy drilled a few holes through his hands. But
It's bad
was
when
it
you're.
a drill or was it a nail
Oh
gun?
no, it was a screw that I had to reverse to get it out of my finger.
So next time you're in here, if you look at the tackle table, it's
Right.
just a table.
Yeah, the stains on it are real.
In the center of the store, there is some DNA in that thing. and a few cuss words along the way.
Oh boy, but I guess no pain, no gain, right?
Measure 10 times, cut 12.
Oh yeah, still measure it. Doesn't work. Got to be an easier way. Just buy one already done. That's what we should have
eyeball
done.
it. That's what I kept telling him. Instead of bleeding all over the ground, why don't you call Amazon, see what they got?
Man, well, they weren't shipping with COVID, so we were handicapped in getting anything.
It got done.
Had to make it. So back in the radio days.
You want to go back? Let's go back.
Because you were in it. You were in the front seat of all of it, from the smuggling to the fishing to the characters.
Yeah.
I mean, the Redbone, beginning of the Redbone with all that stuff, and interviewing Kurt Gowdy and all the celebrities. I mean, just so much of that in the past were such great things.
Started back in the mid-'80s at the old WXOS, which is now Sands Office Supplies, Sands
Right,
and Keys.
down near the way station.
86 radio station that was in an old bowling alley, converted to an airplane hangar and a radio station.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't realize it was a bowling alley.
It was a bowling alley at one time.
Wow.
Big barn of a building, and when I worked there, somebody had parked an airplane in the back of it. So I don't know how they got it in there, but yeah, we had an airplane in the back room.
Well,
Hank Cutshall was the general manager. Hank, well known to old timers from the Homestead area. Jimmy Music worked there.
that's right. Jimmy.
Yeah,
And wasn't it back then the big band sounds?
big band sounds.
What would they do that on the weekends or
playing
something?
the Frank Sinatra tunes,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. It was a good place to work. Worked there for a few years, and then I got recruited by Jack Nabalski to make the move over to Sun 103. That was in 1989.
Oh wow.
And I went to work there.
Oh Jack.
and stayed there for over 25 years.
Wow. Well, I mean, the local radio station in all cities are so important. The network, the communications, and the storms. And
well, it certainly was then. Both of those stations. The old WXOS was more of an Islamorada station, even though it was the first 100,000 watt station in the Keys and had a big signal. It was mainly an Islamorada thing. In fact, I remember first time I ever met Pat Sheldon and Henry Rosenthal and a lot of those guys was when I worked at WXOS, and they used to do the Islamorada Chamber of Commerce radio auctions there. Mm-hmm. And so all the big shots from the community would come in to the radio station for 2 or 3 days while they did the radio auction. So that's how long I've known those guys from way back when. And Sun 103 was more of like the Key Largo, Tavernier, South Dade radio station. But they both served communities as the voice of the small town. Anything that was going on anywhere, we were there. We covered it. We advertised it. We did everything. It was you had that and the Reporter newspaper basically. That was media in the Keys back then. You didn't have the internet. We didn't have
it didn't happen
or
5 minutes ago.
No,
it was like 2 days ago.
It wasn't even cell phones back then. Grandkids sit up on my lap. I'll tell you some stories about back in the day.
Oh yeah, call on the home phone and had an answering machine. And
speaking of which, a funny story. I listened to your podcast with Skip Bradeen. And one story he didn't tell you then, when he worked at Irene and George's department store, which was the old Island Silver and Spice. That's what Skip did when he wasn't fishing.
Right.
He'll tell you he was a haberdasher.
Right.
He sold men's clothing at Irene and George's.
No kidding.
But back in the early 60s when Skip first moved down here, hardly anybody even had a phone, even in their house or their business. And I remember him telling me one time that Irene and George's, which had been there a long time, was one of the first businesses to get a phone. And the phones back then still worked with an operator. So if you want to call somebody, you picked up the phone and there was somebody there who would patch you through on the switchboard.
Oh, wow.
And the phone number at Irene and George's was 6.
1 digit. Wow.
It's like the fire department was 1.
Right.
The sheriff's department was 2, and there was a couple other places. And Irene and George's, their number was 6.
Wow. Well, you don't realize that, but it had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's
he's been around forever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And doing great guy. So speaking of fishing and things, I mean, that's when I went over to Sun 103, Skip was already doing the 910 and 410 reports on the fishing there.
Yeah, he did that for a long time.
So I talked to Skip Bradeen on the phone every day for close to 30 years.
Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I got married on the Blue Chip too.
Did you really?
Yeah, 1990.
Wow. Were you out at sea or at the dock?
At Hens and Chickens Reef.
Ah, very nice. All right.
Going back.
That is going back.
But yeah, Skip, and you did the backcountry fishing reports for a while. The backcountry reports that we had on the station, they changed hosts a little more often. Skip was Skip, and he was there forever. But I remember talking to Jody Joyner did those reports for us.
Timmy Klein did them for a little bit.
Tim Klein, Rick Miller.
Yeah.
Some late greats there. Tim's still with us, but Rick's not, and Jody Joyner's not.
Yeah.
You did it for quite a while.
Yeah.
We had some great captains.
Lucky Louie.
Lucky Louie would call in and report for us. And I believe it or not, that I learned a lot from that. When I was talking to these captains on the phone every day and recording those reports, I mean, I kind of paid attention to what you guys were saying.
Yeah.
I didn't give you a credit card number, but you still passed along a lot of useful information. And so back then I knew everything that was going on in fishing. I knew who was catching what offshore. I knew who was doing what in the backcountry. I knew when the tournaments were, who had the hot stick, who was winning tournaments. And I was kind of in the loop all the time on the fishing. I'm not in the loop so much anymore, but the loop's gotten a lot bigger too in the Keys. It's not like it used to be.
I mean, with all the internet and social media and everything, it is the box is full.
Right.
Everybody's talking maybe a little too much. They just, what people don't understand, when you get on something that's working or you get on a spot and you go tell someone, you've kind of just ruined your spot. And it takes a while to figure something out. It takes a while to start, being successful there. And one mention to someone, and then they're there, and then they tell somebody, and you're done. And now you got to find another good spot.
I'm of the opinion, and a lot of people will disagree with this, I think the worst thing that's happened to fishing in particular, but recreational boating in general in a place like the Keys is the GPS.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's two sides to it.
Everybody has one now. And yeah, they don't get lost. They don't run aground as much as they used to, but yeah, there are no spots anymore. It's all wide open. I talked to a guy the other day. I won't mention his name, but he recently moved to the Keys from Texas. And he's a pretty avid fisherman, and he has a skiff. And when he moved here, he started talking to one of his neighbors, and his neighbor said, call this guy. And for a not unreasonable amount of money, less than $1,000, he bought a chip for his GPS that had all the spots and tracks and everything on it. So
I believe it.
Here's a guy that moved here from another state. He just pops this thing in and follows the line on the GPS to snook, tarpon.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is all of those spots only represent one thing, the location of it. And the second part of that, which is the most important, is when do you go? Do you go on an incoming tide, an outgoing tide, in June, in January? Right. You know, so you learn those spots as to the timing when to be there. And that's something that...
Yeah, you're not going to pop that into your GPS for sure. But then again, if you or I want to go to that spot at that particular time and there's already 6 boats there...
Yeah, we're not going.
Because they followed the line on the chip, then that spot is blown.
Yeah.
And to me, when I started guiding about 25 years ago, part of the fun of it to me was just to go out and explore, to, like you say, put in your time. Go out and, say, well, here's a creek or an island or a flat or something I've never fished before. A lot of times I'd just be out there doing it by myself, get up on the flat, pole around, get up along the shoreline, see what was there. And learn all that stuff and go through the process of finding your way and finding your own spots.
That was the beauty of it. Yeah. Learning how to fish an area. I mean, it's like cheating on a test.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got an A. But if you had to go apply that to something, you would have no idea how to do it.
Right.
And I'm a big, even today, I still enjoy the hunt. Because when I go to the spot, and like yesterday, we were out in the Gulf, and there were 2 boats on a spot. And the way they were fishing it was not how I would have done it. And they were chasing these permit around with their big engine. We got up. They weren't even close to the wreck. We sat on the wreck, and we caught all kinds of stuff, and the permit came to us. And we caught probably more permit than they did, and we never moved. So, again, I'm sure these guys fish it all the time. It wasn't their first rodeo of permit fishing, for example, but it was just not the right way to do it. And I'm not going to say anything. I don't know who they are, for one, and even if you do try to have a conversation with them, it never works out.
Right.
So
no, you don't even go there. It's not worth it. And sometimes you educate people, because they were watching us, and they'd see us catch a snook, or they'd see us catch a Goliath grouper or something, and they knew we had stuff going on, but they kept doing what they were doing. And, sometimes there's a lot of opportunities in a spot. If you know how to take advantage of them, you can have a great day. So you've been fishing here for 40 years, right?
Yep.
In the Keys?
Yeah, Alamorada.
And you came here from?
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. So when you first got here and decided to hang a shingle and become a fishing guide, did you meet a lot of resistance? Were you welcomed? Were guys nice to you? Or?
Well, believe it or not, I fit in really well because they all had broken fishing rods. So when I could fix their fishing rods, and then they saw the stuff I was making, I got some friends pretty quick.
You got your foot in the door.
Yeah. But there were still guys that were very tight-lipped. And I had, the first boat I ever owned was my flats boat. It was a Terry boat. And I would get in the boat and I would just go. I would go out there and I'd look around and I would listen. I'd hear the guys talking about, I saw these bonefish at Shell Key, or, saw a permit at Lignobite. So I knew where those 2 things were. I didn't know anything else. But Steve Huff once said, if you push that boat long enough, you're going to run into something.
Yeah.
And I did. I would pole, and then I would kind of understand, the tides, or the way the current moved, or the way the fish would swim down an edge or across the bank. So it's those things that you learn and then I could apply that to Twin Key or Buchanan or wherever else I wanted to go. So it really helped me just being on the water. And, some people say, when you start talking about spots, oh, that's my spot. You can't go there. Well, every spot is somebody's spot.
Yeah.
Somebody was there before you. And the fact that you would know the person, I think out of respect, you would not go there if they were there.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
So
that's called etiquette.
But there was never any book of etiquette in guiding, nor were there any rules. It was just
they're unwritten.
Yes, and some followed them, and most didn't.
Right.
And that was kind of the problem. And then over time, it got out of control, and it was too late because people would get very angry if you were in their spot. So that stuff still goes on, and I try to just avoid it as much as I can. There's enough places to fish, usually, if you've got a decent playbook. You just go find something on your own.
Yeah, it's been 25 years, like I said. I just renewed my captain's license. That's how I know it's been exactly 25 years since I got the first one, because you renew it every 5 years. But when I first started, I was still in radio and just started guiding as a part-time thing, just because I developed kind of a passion for it. And I kind of had my foot in the door because most of the guides knew who I was anyway, but there was another segment of the guide community that thought, you're a radio guy. What are you doing what are you doing up on the polling platform? You don't belong there. You know? And so when I first started, I'd be treated rather rudely a time or two, not only at the bar, but out in the backcountry too.
Oh, yeah.
Get cut off on a flat or something like that just because they were trying to show me who was the boss,
Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, I had guys like you. Rick Miller was a big help to me. Hank Brown was an open book.
He was always, if he liked you,
we'd sit and chat about things, and he'd give me some ideas. Timmy Klein, and you mentioned back in the beginning days of the Redbone, that's kind of what got me interested in it to begin with. Up until then, I'd been mostly a reef guy, scuba diving and snorkeling and sailing offshore, that sort of thing. When I got invited to fish in the Redbone tournaments and got to see the flats and the bay extensively back then, it was a real eye opener for me. Just like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that sort of fishing, the hunt, the stalk,
Yeah, exactly.
For redfish and bonefish. And then everybody knows that the first time you hook up a bonefish and it starts screaming line off your reel, you're instantly addicted unless there's something terribly wrong with you. So that's kind of what got me involved in it, and I had the opportunity to fish with a lot of great guides and learn a lot that way, and fall in love with it, really. I fished with some bad ones too that we don't have to talk about. But you also learn how not to do it.
Yeah.
Right? There's things you learn how to do and things you learn not to do.
Well, there's a business in guiding. Fishing really is not the most important thing.
No.
The person on your boat having a great time. And fishing is fishing, whether they bite, they don't bite, or you catch them or not. But if that person gets off your boat, had a great time, they're going to do it again. Then that's how you build a business. That's how you get people to come back. And you will have great days with them. Sometimes it's right out of the gate. But, I would always try to kind of coach them a little bit. And if we were having a slow day, make sure I tried as hard as I could, to find something and to make it work. But sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, not every day's a winner. Again, going back to Bradeen, as a businessman, he's probably the most successful
100%.
Recreational fishing guide in the history of the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
Fished more days, made more money.
Yep.
Not because he was the greatest fisherman or caught the most fish or won the most tournaments, but because he provided that unforgettable experience for his clients who came back and fished with him again and again and again for 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really the core of the guys here. They develop that and they practice that.
It's entertainment.
We are in the entertainment business. That's what we do. It's kind of funny. I think about it sometimes. We take a perfect stranger who we've never met. We're in a 16-foot boat and you go fishing. And it's really
sometimes for 8 hours at a time.
It's really kind of awkward if you think about it. but you're both brought together for the same passions and the same reasons. And more than not, you develop a friendship with them, and it really turns into ongoing business, because most people that charter a boat know that, hey, it might be one of those days, it might not, it's fishing. And there are other people that expect a great day. And, those are probably one-timers, and, you're not going to please them if fishing's tough.
There's a lot of that, and we live in the age of the review, which is kind of odd, too. You never know what to expect when...
Yeah.
I mean, I had a guy not too long ago out tarpon fishing, and he'd never tarpon fished before, but he was from Kentucky, and I heard about tarpon, and I wanted to go tarpon fishing. Okay. Right? That.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's coming. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So
never fails. It's hanging over the door. Same story.
I try to explain to him, what we're going to do and how difficult it's going to be, and we're going to see some fish and they're not going to eat. We might hook up a couple and you're not going to get them to the boat. So we end up hooking up 6, get 4 to the boat, take their pictures.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, the guy writes me a bad review.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, fished all day, only caught 6 fish. I could catch more fish in my pond at home.
I don't think I got a bad review, but I had a guy one time, he caught 5 fish. And we got back to the dock, and he says, I really thought today was going to be better fishing. and I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, let's see, you caught a 100-pound tarpon, you caught a big permit, you caught an overslot-sized snook, you caught a cobia, you caught, like the 5 species that he caught were not like little rat reds. I mean, these were serious fish that he caught.
Game fish.
And I go, not for nothing, sir, but I mean, you will never do that again. I mean, you had the trip of a lifetime that, just doesn't happen every day. And he kind of thought about it a little bit, and, I don't know if he ever got it or not, but, fished him one time and was one of the best days I ever had on something like that. You
were feeling pretty good by the end of the day.
I was feeling great. Oh, we only caught 5. Oh, well, sorry.
But that's part of it.
Yeah.
And
people don't know.
And I didn't even respond to the review. I just let it slide. I'm like, what are you going to do? Like you said, he's never coming back anyway.
Yep.
So
yeah. And anything you say, it's going to get, then he's going to comment. You're going to comment. It's like,
why start the argument?
I call it like a tennis match. He says something, you say something, and it's back and forth, and nobody wins.
And the next trip you take, maybe you're going to have a slow day, but they're going to have a great time. And
exactly.
Because you'll also get reviews on slow days of fishing where they say, fishing was just okay, but man, we went to the most beautiful places I've ever been, and the guide was great. And so you never know how that's going to work out.
Very true.
So one thing that's true about fishing, particularly as a guide, is funny stories.
Yeah.
So you tell me one, then I'll tell you one.
Funny stories.
Yeah, just something goofy.
God, some of them aren't. They're a little scary.
Well, I'll tell you my funny one. And this was early on in my guiding career. But this is a pretty funny story about...
A funny one. Okay.
About the kind of people you meet.
Oh, yeah.
And this is back when we had just formed the Key Largo Fishing Guides Association with Kerry Wingo and George Clark and Tony De Los Santos and some others up there. And we all fished out of Rowell's Marina.
Right.
And I got a booking one day. I don't even know how these guys find me, but they booked me for a full day. 2 guys from Japan, which you've probably fished some Japanese fishermen too. They're very intense about it.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of interesting to get along with. But so these guys drove down. They were staying in Miami Beach. And again, I don't know how they find me, but the concierge of their hotel in Miami Beach found me and sent these guys down. One guy spoke no English whatsoever. The other guy spoke very little English. We went out fishing, had a pretty good day, just catching fun stuff, jacks and ladyfish and a couple of trout, that sort of thing. Fished all day, and they were just fun. They were having a ball. Get back to the dock, and we're settling up, and I'm chatting with the one guy that speaks a little English. And I said, so what else are you going to do on your vacation? They'd never been to America before. What else are you going to do on your vacation here in America? And the guy looks at me and says, tomorrow we rent a car and go to the Grand Canyon.
Holy cow.
They're staying in Miami Beach.
I wonder if he knew it wasn't in Miami.
And I didn't say anything. It's, well, have a good time.
Wow.
Nice to meet you.
Holy cow. Well, that's going to be a surprise when they punch that one in. Jeez.
So that was a pretty good story about the sort of people you meet and the things you encounter.
There's one that I got to tell, and it's not as clean as it should be, but it was so funny that it's one of those things. So a lady on the boat, husband and wife, we're fishing triple tailing or something. The husband and I are up on the bow, and the lady says, I have to go to the bathroom. So I said, well, there's a bucket, or you can hang it over the side. And she goes, I don't think so. I said, well, I'm sorry, but there are no bathrooms around here, so, I don't know what to tell you. So about 10 minutes go by, and we're up on the bow looking for triple tails. So I haven't heard anything from her, and all of a sudden she starts talking. She goes, oh, have you guys seen anything? What? Have you caught anything? And I'm thinking, we're on the same boat. You ought to know what's going on if we caught anything. And she says, let me know when you see one. And I went, God, that didn't sound right. So now, and the husband didn't miss a beat. He's like, he's looking for the triple tail, and we're going along with the trolling motor down. And I'm just thinking, oh no, this is bad.
Bad things are happening.
So I kind of try to look around a little bit, and I don't see her. So
She's making your chum slick.
I finally get far enough back, and she's sitting on the bait well. And I said to the husband, I go, hey, I think your wife found the bathroom. And he spins around, and there she is over the bait well doing her thing.
Wow.
And I was like, I couldn't believe that she somehow figured out that there was a head on the boat, and I didn't mention it when I said bucket or hang it over. And she was happy as could be, did her business, and I was just so blindsided with the whole thing. And I told the husband, like, does she get out much?
We're fishing lures the rest of the day.
I mean, we have shrimp and pinfish in there that you're getting and putting it on the hook. So that was pretty funny. I mean, you just couldn't.
That's a new one. I have never heard that one.
I never had it happen before, but it happened. It was on the contender. So I have a pretty big bait well in the middle, and then the little one in the back. And when I couldn't see her, like my peripheral vision was looking, and when she kind of slurred her words a little bit, I went,
grunting one out
this
in
is
your bait well.
This is bad. So,
well, husband and wives are always interesting. So now you remind me of another good one. Had a husband and wife out on the boat. And it was one of these situations where I really have no idea why this woman wanted to come along. She had no interest in fishing. She brought a book, was just sitting on the cooler, complaining about everything all day. Full day of fishing.
Oh, geez.
Out in the back, poling around looking for redfish up on flats. And struggling a little bit to find anything. And he was all right with it, but she was kind of grouchy from the beginning. So we're maybe 4 or 5 hours into the day, and I'm up on the platform. The husband's up on the bow of the boat, and we're, working the flat. And she looks up from her book, and she spins around, looks at me up on the platform. She says, "Is the fishing always this slow?" In a real bitchy tone, And I'm kind of known for having a sort of a dry sense of humor and a little sarcastic from time to time. So I'm up on the platform. I said, you know what? I'm thinking, it was Sunday. Today's Sunday. I said, I'm thinking that maybe the guy that's supposed to come in at Everglades National Park on Sundays and let the fish out didn't come to work this morning. And she looks around at me and she says, is there someone you can call? And the husband just turns around. Are you shitting me? Is there someone you can call? Yeah, call. Hey, someone let the fish out.
Yeah, let them out.
Yeah, she was dead serious.
So we just did a podcast with Rico DeShaw.
Rico.
And you know Rico extremely well, and I know you have a ton of stories about him. Just tell us one one of the crazy things he did, and you know, he was great to interview and tell his story about, you know, how things were and what happened and all of that stuff. But I know you had some you've told me before that are pretty funny.
I'm just, what is the average age of your audience? There's no children listening to your podcast.
Oh, I would. Well, they're going to read it in books and they're going to Google it, so it's fine.
It's actually labeled explicit, not for children.
Okay, that's probably a good thing.
Didn't he do something in an airplane? Try to push somebody out of it, or?
No, Rico's been friends with Gary Dunn forever.
Right.
They both went to UM and played football there and everything. So did Dennis Hara.
Yeah.
So back in the day when Dennis and Gary were still playing, the three of them ended up spending a lot of time together, which, if you know Rico and Gary and Dennis, they should be separated by hundreds of miles at all times. But they were all buddies back then. And the way that I recall the story was that Rico, being a pilot, had gotten hired to move, it was a Learjet from Pittsburgh to, I don't recall what their destination was.
Right, because he was working for like a charter company.
Yeah. And he was just moving the plane from one place to another. So there were no customers on it or anything. And somehow he came up with a brilliant idea to invite Gary and Dennis to go along with him, which is probably not a good idea.
Boy.
There was a little bit of cocktailing involved, not on Rico's part because he was flying, but Dennis and Gary were up to their usual hijinks. And so that Rico's flying and the two of them are in the back of the plane doing whatever it is that they're doing. And all of a sudden Rico gets an alarm on his control panel that the plane is depressurized, because Gary, he was arguing something with Dennis, and Gary decided to open the door of the airplane and throw Hara's luggage out of the plane.
Oh my gosh.
And he did.
Wow.
And then closed the door.
Wow.
And so the drinking and the hijinks continued until Dennis was no longer among the conscience. and they landed wherever it was that they were going, and they go into the FBO, the little executive airport area there, to get a car or whatever it was that they were doing. And so while Dennis was passed out on the plane, Gary had taken a Sharpie and drew a penis on the side of Dennis's face, pointing toward his mouth. And he was passed out. He didn't know it was there. So they go walking into this executive airport somewhere to the concierge desk.
Oh my gosh.
Dennis has this fine artwork on the side of his face. And the woman at the counters, her eyes get real big, and here come these three very large men, and Dennis like, what are you looking at? What are you looking at?
I can see.
Everybody just started laughing. He went to the bathroom, saw that. So that was one of the better fly with me stories with Rico and Dunn and Hara.
Well, those guys would fish the redbone back in the day, and
sure,
didn't they jump out of the boat or fall out one time?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's a good redbone story with Gary and Pat Cavanaugh, the late Pat Cavanaugh, when they were both working with Budweiser. They were fishing with Joe Lepre.
Oh, boy.
In the redbone. And it was one of those typical redbone days where the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour. It's cold, and they're staked up on a flat out on the ocean side in Key Largo, drowning shrimp. And finally, they looked at their watches, and Pat said, it's 11 o'clock, Joe. The bar's open. So Snappers is right over there. Let's go have a drink. Rather than sitting out here in the wind. So Joe takes them into the Snappers, and they go in there and commence to drinking for the rest of the day. So they're getting ready to go back to the dock. You had to be back to the dock by 4 o'clock or whatever. And in Snappers, they had a pretty nice bonefish mount up on the wall. So as a joke, they took the mount down, took it out to the boat, laid it on the boat by the ruler, and took a picture of it and everything. And they turned it in with their scorecard at the end of the day. So later on at the party, after the day of fishing, Mary Ann Stagg, I think, was the scorekeeper back then. And the three of them were sitting together, and she walks up and she says, guys, we got a little question about that picture of that bonefish that you guys turned in. And Joe looked at it like, what's the matter? He said, that fish looked a little dusty. So they did turn in a picture of their dusty bonefish during the red bone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I can see them doing that straight faced, not missing a beat.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Ah, we had some fun back then. Oh man. And there was characters. You know, there was a lot of people that, you know, were fun to be around, and you'd cut up with them, and it was just the camaraderie back then was just.
And you mentioned
great.
earlier in the program Kurt Gowdy. Kurt Gowdy was one of the more interesting guys I ever had a chance to interview.
Yeah.
Just really a great guy to talk to, great storyteller, true gentleman, great sportsman. He was a lot of fun to be around. Yeah.
Well, we were really fortunate to have him part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back in that time.
Yeah. And we all miss Gary. And
yeah.
A lot of people that were involved in the Red Bone now have passed on, which is kind of sad. Jim Bokar and
oh yeah,
many. I mean, it's almost too numerous to mention them all.
Yeah. Things don't last forever.
Yeah, Billy Knowles, we all miss terribly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. We're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah, we're getting a little older, I think.
Yeah. Wish I had a crystal ball. Can you imagine?
You really want to know?
Well, if you're going to go 2 years from now, just think of the level of things you would do and the fun you would have. I mean, holy cow. That would be
true.
I mean, you're going anyway. It's not like
you'd have a chance to blow it up.
I would definitely
maybe accelerate the timeline a little bit.
Well, that would be the maximum time.
Oh.
So if you're a little short, then you're going anyway.
You didn't quite make it to the finish line.
You never know.
But fishing wise, all those guys involved in the Red Bone. Talking about the radio shows, when we put Easy 96.9 on the air as our third station there at Sun 103, Bill Kelly did the fishing reports for us.
Yeah.
And when Bill was not available for some reason or other, he used to have Jimbo Thomas from the Thomas Flyer call in, Bouncer Smith. So I got a chance to talk to some of those Miami area legends too.
Yeah. Oh, they
and
are
hear from
for
those
sure.
Guys that you know well, I'm sure.
Is there anything you miss about the radio station and all that stuff?
I just miss that community part of it.
Right.
Being around everybody that's doing everything. I mean, I kind of enjoy being away from it a little, that I'm not obligated to go to every event and be doing a live remote broadcast of some sort. But it was a good thing to be involved in all that. I'm more of a hermit now.
Well, I can remember for years, you're on the radio, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting here rapping, at my house or wherever my shop was at the time.
Green grass and high tides.
And I'd be like, you got to play some tunes for me. You got to get me going. And the Outlaws and Frampton and, Elton John.
Funeral for a Friend.
I mean, it was pretty special when you could pick up the phone, call the DJ at the radio station, and, hey, could you play me a song? And, within a few songs it came on. And every now and then you'd even throw a little something, give me a shout out or something for sitting here rapping rods and wanting to listen to something. And that was pretty cool. You can't do it today.
You can't do it on your Pandora, no.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool. Those were great times.
Radio then was a lot more fun because of the human involvement of it. I mean, talk about the old WXOS. We had no automation system there whatsoever. We played records 24 hours a day. So, I mean, there was somebody there, and you had two turntables, so you had a song going over there, and by the time that one ended, you better have another one going over here. And you sat in a room full of records. And
wow.
There was no playlist. You walked around the room picking them out. And I remember one time I used to work the mornings only on the weekends there. I'd have to come in at 6 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday morning. And so, like I say, it was manned 24 hours. They had some old retired guys that would come in and work like the late night shifts. And one guy, if I recall correctly, his name was Dewey.
I remember Dewey.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big guy.
Yeah, Dewey was working the overnight shift. So I'm at home in Key Largo. I get in my car to drive down to the station, turn the radio on, and all I hear is It takes me 20, 25 minutes to get down there, so I'm listening 25 minutes.
Uh-oh.
So I'm figuring, well, he's either just asleep or dead.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Right?
So I opened the front door, walk in, and yeah, Dewey's got his head down on the thing. he's out. And I mean, that might have been doing that for hours.
Right.
And I just woke him up, put a record on, go home, Dewey. All right. Good night.
Yep.
See you tomorrow.
Not miss a beat. Now, that would be hard for me to do that graveyard shift.
Small-timey radio.
Yeah. Well, but it was all over the country. I mean, everybody did it the same way. And God, you start thinking about how many radio stations there are. There's a lot of them around the country.
About 6,000, I think.
That's all?
Yeah. But it was more fun when it required that human touch. It's just all computers now.
Yeah.
And so when they deregulated the industry, and that's what caused the consolidation where you had 2 or 3 companies that basically owned all the radio stations instead of them being independent and owned by mom and pop companies. Mm-hmm. And they changed the rules where you didn't have to have somebody there 24 hours a day. I mean, it was the law back then that the radio station had to be manned 24 hours a day. And so when they changed all that, it became, I guess, maybe a better business model that you didn't have to have staff there all the time, but it just kind of took all the fun out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's different.
And now it's just a computer, and you can't call the guy on the radio and say, hey, can you play a song for me? Because there's nobody there to answer the phone.
Matt Bellinger does it, and I called him one day, and he's out on the water.
Yeah.
And I go, hey, I thought you were in a studio. Oh, no, I recorded that a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I'm fishing. So it sounded like he was in the studio, so I gave him a call to play some music, and he wasn't even, it had been recorded. He wasn't there. So, like you say, all the automation stuff is just, you don't have to do it at your leisure.
And there hadn't been a turntable or a record inside a radio station in 20 years.
Oh, I'm sure. Wow. So now it's snorkeling, kayaking, paddleboard.
That's my life now.
A little bit of backcountry stuff.
Yep.
Show them an alligator.
Yeah, have my own business, out there kayak expeditions. We take kayakers out in the Florida Bay on a pontoon boat, let them paddle around out in the beauty and splendor of Florida Bay, which has turned out to be a really cool thing. And I got that idea from when I was guiding. Florida Bay Outfitters is there on Blackwater Sound, right next door to the Caribbean Club.
Right.
And especially when we were still fishing out of Rowell's Marina, coming back across Blackwater Sound, I can't tell you how many times I'd run into kayakers out there in the middle of the sound who paddled offshore with the wind behind them, and it was time to turn around and paddle back, and they're out there, they're tired, they're beat, they can't take another stroke. So I'd just get them on the boat and tie the kayaks up behind the boat and pull them in there and drop them off.
Right.
And I did that a number of times, and I got to thinking that, the reason they're paddling out there, they want to see what's there.
Right.
But it's too far to get in a kayak and paddle from the shore of Blackwater Sound out in the middle of the Florida Bay where there's something cool to look at. So why not take them out there?
Right.
Let them paddle around and see all that great stuff, and then bring them back.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's...
And up until then, and maybe even still now, because I'm still the only one doing that, the only way you could ever get out there and see that would be to hire a fishing guide for $400 for a day, which was probably what we were charging back then. And a lot of people don't like to fish, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
And so I found a way for people to get out there and see and appreciate the solitude and the beauty of Florida Bay, go kayaking for a while without jet skis running them over, that sort of thing.
And that upper Key Largo, that area up there is pretty, and it's not, I don't think it's as crazy traffic-wise as it is further south.
No, it's very, very quiet, that northeast corner of the bay.
Yeah.
Very little boating activity except Nest Key, but we stay away from Nest Key anyway. And there's a lot of areas where you can explore up there, even on a holiday weekend where in a 3-hour trip out there we won't see another boat.
Yeah. Well, comes back to people coming to the Keys, want to have a good time. You're entertaining them, getting them out there, having fun. I'm sure you do a shore lunch and you cook up lunch for them and
showing them something different.
Grill up some mangrove snappers and
still do some fishing on the skiff. Still do it the old way. No trolling motor. I still like to push the boat with a big stick.
Well, that trolling motor comes in pretty handy. I tell you what.
You like that thing?
Oh yeah, it's a game changer for the stuff I do in the deeper water. I mean, it's awesome. I have 3 of them because they're always broken.
You're fishing a bay boat now, and I'm still fishing a old-fashioned flat skiff.
Well, you could upgrade.
Maybe one of these days.
Yeah.
When I get old like you.
You're not in a hurry.
And then and then when I'm not doing those things, I run snorkel boats for Sun Diver. Gets me out on the reef and doing something different too.
Well, that's still a huge business in Key Largo. I mean, it's amazing when I'm up that way and I see those dive boats at Molasses and French and all the dive spots up there. Wow, there's a lot of business up there for the diving.
Especially this time of year. Get into the hot summer months, July and August, and the kayaking thing kind of tapers off because it's pretty steamy hot out there to be paddling a kayak around in the bright sunshine.
Yeah.
And same thing with the fishing a little bit. I think people don't necessarily want to go out there and have the sun beat their brains out for 4 hours. So that tapers off a little bit too. So the snorkeling keeps me busy during the summer months.
This time of year, it's great to get in the water.
Go out and get wet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's calm and clear. You know, the reefs are not what they used to be when you and I first got here, but there's still some great spots we can take them where there's a lot of coral life and a lot of fish life.
Sure.
Go see the statue of Jesus every now and again.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I always wondered, how did that get there? I mean, obviously somebody put it there.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. Was that Slate or somebody?
No. That statue's been there since the mid-'60s, I think.
Yeah.
55 years, I think it's been there.
Right.
The statue is actually called Christ of the Abyss.
Okay.
And it was made by an artist in Italy. And it's cast in bronze. And when he made 3 of them. So he made a mold and cast these statues. Christ of the Abyss. The original one is off the coast of Italy in the Mediterranean. The second one is in St. George's, Grenada. That one was given to the people of Grenada by the Italian government because an Italian cruise ship had a big fire on it and started sinking off the coast of Grenada. This is, again, back in the 50s or 60s, something like that. And the Grenadian people all jumped in their little boats and went out and rescued all the people off the sinking cruise liner. So the Italian government gave them the second statue. The third one was sent to the United States in the early 1960s as part of a traveling exposition on scuba diving. Which was put on in part by the Cressy family. You've probably seen Cressy wetsuits, Cressy fins.
Right.
They were one of the early companies that was in the scuba diving business. So they put on this traveling exposition trying to get people interested in going underwater with a regulator and a tank. And,
wow.
And so they brought this statue along thinking, you know, if you come to Italy and dive in the Mediterranean, you can see Jesus underwater.
Right.
Well, this thing weighed tons. It was cast out of bronze. Apparently the exposition wasn't really that big a hit. And it cost so much to ship it that it just got left somewhere in New York or something. So there was a leftover Christ of the Abyss statue.
Wow.
Well, some members of the Cressy family had traveled to Key Largo to dive to see the only living coral reefs in North America, and they were just so impressed by it. And right around that same time is when Pennicamp Park was being created, the first underwater state park. So the Cressy family is the one who originally donated the money to have the statue shipped to Key Largo to have the pedestal built and have it sunk out there.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's how it ended up.
So when it sits out there, do they ever bring it in for cleaning or service? It's been growing into the reef right there the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think they clean it. I think Jesus cleans himself. I mean, it's got some incrustation on it. But there's a plaque on it that they clean.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So I believe somebody goes down there and maintains that so people can read it. But other than that, no, I think nature just has its way with it. It's got some fire coral and stuff on it. But
yeah. Yeah, it's planted right in the middle of the
it is
big
I mean,
coral.
I don't think anybody keeps any reliable statistics, but it's thought to be the most snorkeled spot on the planet.
I would think. kind of like a religious experience when you're down there and you're looking at him with his arms up.
And this time of year, on a weekend in particular, if you want to go out and snorkel at the Christ of the Abyss statue, I'm telling you, get there early in the morning. In the summer, usually in the winter, it's not a problem to get a mooring ball. I think there's 13 balls on the statue.
Oh, wow.
And in the summer, they're all taken up, and people drive around in a circle for hours waiting for one to open up, because you can't drop an anchor there.
Right.
And as soon as the ball opens up, 5 boats head for it. So it's a pretty busy place, but it's still a beautiful reef. And where the statue is, I mean, there's always tons and tons of fish there.
Yeah. Where is it exactly? Is it Grecian rocks?
No, it's just north of Grecian, Key Largo Dry Rocks.
Dry rocks, okay. Well, I've been there several times, and it's certainly an interesting thing to see.
Everybody that lives here, if you've never seen it, you got to get out there and see it.
Yeah.
You know, and they do. Slate and some other people do underwater weddings there, that sort of thing.
Right.
Who knows how many ashes have been spread there at the Christ of the Abyss? Probably hundreds and hundreds of people. That sort of thing. It's an iconic spot in the Florida Keys.
Right. Very true. And it's been there a long time. Well,
which reminds me of another adventure that you and I had back in the radio days when we hopped on your boss's boat to go see the sinking of the Spiegel Grove.
Oh, that's right.
And by the time we got there, it was already done. Upside down.
They went quick with that one. Yeah, I remember that. And that didn't it break up in a hurricane or something?
No, you remember we got there, the bow was sticking up out of the water. The boat had flipped and sunk while people were still on it. They were still trying to get it done. And so they ended up, they couldn't leave it floating on the surface like that because it was a hazard to navigation. So I don't know, they drilled some holes in or something to get it to sink, and it went to the bottom, but it was laying on its side.
Right.
Which was not ideal for diving. It wasn't what they were after. Yeah, and then a hurricane came by. Hurricane
Wilma, wasn't it?
No, it was Charlie or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the surge from the hurricane rolled it, and it was sitting on its...
Oh, it was upright.
It was upright.
Right. Isn't that
so the hurricane fixed
unbelievable that that inertia on the bottom could roll...
A 510-foot ship.
Wow. Well, you know, it's one of those things, as hard as it is to believe, you know, there it is.
Again, I was at the radio station the day that happened when the phone rings, and it was Spencer Slate on the phone. Yeah. Hey, you can't believe what's happening. The hurricane rolled the ship. I mean,
I remember that. That was big news because it was finally the way they wanted it. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Well, it's been great sharing stories and
thanks for inviting me
about stuff, and I'm sure we'll do more in the future. And we're not done yet.
You know, you're an interesting guy. We live in a very interesting place, and it's nice to relive some of the memories and look forward to a long and distinguished future as well.
Oh yeah. Well,
what's funny about guys like you and I now? Now we're the old guys.
I know.
We've been here long enough that we remember being the young guys, looking at the old guys. Now there's young guys looking at us, and we're the old guys.
I hate it when they call me sir. Sir, and I look around like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
But we're there now.
Yeah.
So we're going to enjoy it. Well, Casey, awesome to have you on the show. Great to be
You are awesome.
That's right. You are awesome.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. Until next time.